I didn't wake up planning to kiss a billionaire on a rooftop. I woke up planning to stretch $50 into groceries and get through a shift without shattering a single champagne flute. But right before 10, I heard a whisper by the service elevators that cut through the music like a blade. A woman said, "One shot, clean, he always stands by the south rail around 10, and a man muttered about cameras, and she laughed. Please, he trusts me, so I did the wildest, smartest, dumbest thing I've ever done. I walked straight to Cole Harrington, Lakeview City's golden boy, and said, "Sir, be quiet." Then I kissed him, quick and soft, long enough for the two shadows closing in to veer off. Just another couple under the city lights, and then that happened. He shoved me hard, my tray skidded. The crowd poured out with their phones and their judgment. Gold digger. She wants a lawsuit, and I said, "Someone's trying to hurt you," but Cole snapped. "You're fired." And when I grabbed his pant leg, because pride doesn't feed kids, he kicked the tray into my ribs. I went down, palm scraped stone skin, split, and the little flame birthmark under my elbow flashed under the lights. For a second, he froze like he knew that mark from a nightmare. Then he looked past me like I was nobody. Security walked me out. While people laughed, I left with blood on my sleeve and a humiliation you can taste metallic and thick. It would have been easy to cry on the train and pretend the world is random. Instead, I got a knock at my door. An hour later, a woman in a pale blue suit with a clipboard smile said she was from the Employee Claims Bureau. I asked for ID. Her smile flickered. Her hand came up with a syringe. The chain caught. I ran shoes now. I told my brother and my two little cousins. We hit the fire escape with one bag and 3 breathless prayers. We slept on cots at St. Jude under a buzzing light that dies every few minutes. And I kept replaying the kiss, the shove, the crowd asking myself if I'd do it again, and I kept landing on yes as long as he was alive. At dawn, my phone rang. "Nia Carter," a calm voice said. "I'm Jules Park, head of security for Harrington Holdings. He heard your recording, and my chest burned with anger and relief, because I'm the one who pressed record by habit and paranoia. When I heard that whisper by the kitchen, now the man who kicked me wanted my help. I didn't forgive him, but I took the elevator anyway, the private one where the carpet is thicker than my landlord's conscience. And the doors opened onto a study with glass like a painting, and Cole standing there without the armor suit, eyes gray, with no sleep, he said. I heard it, and I said, "You kicked me," and he just took it. I know. Then he pulled out a velvet box with an old black and white photo, his father in a hospital hallway, a nurse beside him with my nose and my mouth, and that same flame on her arm, my mother Marion, and on the back, his father's handwriting. "Unnamed nurse saved my life, scar like fire on left arm, some debts you don't repay, you carry them." And that right there, that's the twist that changed the temperature in the room. My mother had stepped in front of a bullet for his father, and never told me she just worked nights. Raised me and once mentioned a Harrington grant, like it had floated down from a cloud. So I sat because standing felt disrespectful, and I said, "What now?" And Jules brought up surveillance from the party. One split screen caught me running, like I borrowed my life from the future. Another caught the corridor mic, Valeria Knox, Cole's girlfriend, saying those clean-shot words. We played it twice, 3 times. Because anger is a feeling, proof is an engine. We set a trap for Sunday night at the Harrington Trust Vault document consolidation for a transition that Valeria and Cole's brother Nathan had been engineering on paper. We slipped a decoy trust order into a box labeled 7 with dye seals and tiny forensic trackers. Then we waited. The vault hums, the way churches hum. You lower your voice, or at least get honest with it. I wore navy coveralls and a fake badge and kept my birthmark under my sleeve at 12:03. A fire alarm chirped and died. The intercom said false trigger, and Valeria glided in with a stolen badge and quiet hands, and went straight to box 7 like she'd already opened it in her head. 100 times she lifted, swapped, sealed, turned, and walked into Jules and 2 guards. Cole stepped out of the elevator like a verdict. Board verification, she tried, and Jules said, "No." And the die pinged, and the trackers lit, and Valeria showed us the real person under the dress for a split second. "You think this ends with me?" She hissed. "Boys like him don't live without snakes. They just grow new ones, you know what I mean?" She wasn't wrong, just early. Nathan showed up on the terrace the next morning, looking like concern in a fleece. Cole asked if he had anything to do with Anderson's death, the legal head who died last year while amending the trust Nathan gave that little brother. Smile that says, "I'll never say this on paper." Accidents happen, translation, yes, and prove it. Then the smear machine kicked on a cable outlet, ran a segment called "The Waitress Who Rose Too Fast," with a mugshot that wasn't mine, and a manager who remembered me shaking down customers, and a parade of screenshots of me looking tired. Like that's a crime people I've never met suddenly had a thesis about my soul. Jules wanted to sue everyone. Cole wanted to break a table. I wanted light. They want me to scream so they can point at my throat. I said we go transparent, so we posted every verified timestamp, and dock the corridor, audio, the shelter, check-in, the Harrington grant file with my mother's name. Let them look. Some saw what they wanted. Some saw me either way. The light found a way in. Then they lit a building. Andre's stairwell turned into a chimney accelerant on the lower floors. Exits cut. Someone pulled the alarm early anyway. Maybe a tenant with a brave nose, maybe? God. My brother came out coughing under a foil blanket, and I put my hands on his face with ash still on mine, and made promises with my whole body. Dominic Shaw came onto my detail the next day, ex-military, calm jaw like a doorstop. "They don't want you dead," he said. "Not yet. They want you broken and discredited," and I said, "They don't know me," and he nodded. "They will." Jules followed money through shells and think tanks to a private contractor network, calling itself the Outriders government, adjacent on a good day, ghosts on a bad one. And the money had a familiar perfume. Evelyn Drake Board, elder donor to schools. The hugger who told me I was brave on camera, so I wore a wire to Westchester and watched her pour good wine with bad wisdom. You think truth wins, power wins. People like you are only allowed to speak until we remember. "We never needed you," she said. "Ask off," and I set my glass down before my hand shook and left with audio that sounded like an affidavit. At dawn, she resigned by lunch. Her assets froze by dinner. She was in a black SUV that wasn't Uber. Nathan tried to slide out. We met in a Red Hook coffee shop. He wore a cap and shades like he'd studied espionage on YouTube. "You've been busy," he said. "Surviving," I said. He pushed a thumb drive across the table. Emails, voice memos, donors. "I want immunity," and I said. "You want leverage," and he said. "I want my name off the paperwork before the feds show up," and I tapped my earpiece. Dominic whispered, "Hold him," and 2 agents came through the door. Nathan's face did that fall. Men's faces do, when they realize the last paragraph is already written. "You set me up," he said. "No," I said, "you brought the pen." Rooms that were built to muffle voices started hearing mine. The DOJ wanted my statement. Then my suggestions. The Harrington board scheduled a vote on ethics and whistleblower protections. We drafted with my mother's pendant warm against my skin. The smear kept humming. But light bleaches, stains, if you let it work. I spoke to a group of high school girls I'd promised to visit before. Any of this one asked, "What if people don't believe you?" And I told her, "You keep telling the truth until it's louder than the lies." The board vote tied, until the chairwoman lifted her hand and said, "Yes." I didn't cheer. I exhaled like I'd been holding a parking garage on my chest. Cole stepped to the mics and said the rare words, "Attacks on Naya are attacks on this foundation." Then he walked back inside and we met eyes from the mezzanine and said nothing, because sometimes a look is the whole language the Outriders tried one last wave. A rifle on a rooftop that flinched when he realized we were already watching his watch. It's hard to hide when every porch light is on. A week later, we opened the Harrington Justice Center. The stone over the door reads, "Let truth be louder than silence." No plaque. With my name, good names, our heavy stories, travel lighter on that same terrace where the whole mess began. Cole handed me a velvet box, my mother's pendant engraved with her initials and a date. She gave it to my father. He gave it back. "I want you to have it now," he said. "I don't know what kind of man I've been, but I want to rebuild this the right way with you next to me, not behind me." And I didn't say yes, and I didn't say no. I said, "We do this clean, we do it loud, we do it for people who never get invited into these rooms." He nodded, tired smile beginning energy. "People ask if I was right to kiss him. I ask them to hold two truths at once without breaking. I touched a man without asking, and I will live with that. I also pulled two wolves off a cliff, and I will live with that too. It saved him. It cost me. It gave me a fight I didn't want, and a voice I can't ignore. You can be uneasy with the method, and still grateful for the outcome. You know what I mean? Now it's your turn. Tell me in the comments what you think was right or wrong here. Would you have done it differently? Have you ever watched someone get smeared for telling the truth? Or been that someone yourself? Where do you see power hiding behind manners in your world? And if you were up there at 10 to 10, two men walking slow, a life on the line, what would you have done? Be honest. Be specific. Share this with one person who still thinks silence is neutral. Let's make the light louder.